Welcome everyone to another week of the Global Sports Channel's football show. I'm your host, David Barbash, for week 34, and my co-host, welcoming back once again, Darren McCauley, striker extraordinaire when he was at Coleraine, Derry, Inverness. Also started out as a trainee at Celtic United and recently finished up playing Dynamo St. Albans in Australia. How you doing today? Good to see you, buddy.
All good, David. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, man, a pleasure, man. I've missed you the last 2 weeks. And what a better way to start off this week, because the first game last Thursday was your team, Manchester United. Oh, man. 6-2 winners at home in the Europa League over Roma. What a dominant performance. Wow. I mean, I predicted a few weeks ago that Roma was one of my dark horses for being challenging for potentially taking the Europa League if it wasn't the domestic two, obviously, in Man U and Arsenal. But now after this, I've got to say Man United's got to be in the driver's seat. Bruno Fernandes with a brace, as you saw, the 9th and 71st minute, he got the penalty. Edison Cavani, 48th minute, 64th minute, also with a brace. Pogba got on, and then, of course, the recent wonder kid, Mason Greenwood, who's been on fire in the 86th. Now, this is weird. Pellegrini had tied it up for Roma in the 15th through the penalty. And Dzeko, who I really loved when he played for Man City, also scored in the 33rd minute. So Man U actually came from behind. They were 2-1 down at one point in that first half. What did you see? What was the turning point in the game? Because they absolutely dominated in terms of possession and shots. Was it 18 shots to 5? The possession and dominant shots for Man U over Roma. What was your take on the game? You must have been loving this. I thought a great performance from Man U sets them up really in great position.
Yeah, well, it was reminiscent of around 10, 15 years ago when we beat Roma 6-2.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
And we had Rooney, Alan Smith.
Don't say Alan Smith. I can't take that one.
Yeah, exactly. So it was reminiscent of that, and it was an unbelievable performance. 2-1 down, and then to come back, it was free-flowing football. Fantastic performance by Cavani and Fernandes again, both of them coming up with a brace. And Cavani is just getting better with age. He looks sharp. He looks super fit. Fernandes producing the goods, as he always does. My player of the season. And from a Roma perspective, I don't think they were ever challenges for winning the Europa League for me. They always were a team that falls short. I don't ever see Roma in a Champions League or a Europa League final.
They've blown so many opportunities at the late stages. Remember where they caved in against Liverpool, where they would in the first leg. It's like, wait a second, hold on, is this one performance in the first leg, and then the second leg, and you're like, whoa, okay, you just blew, blew the lead.
They kind of remind me of the Tottenham of the Serie A. They flatter to deceive. They come up, but then they never really do anything. But it really was an amazing performance. Greenwood, it was just the speed and the quality of the goals were extraordinary.
You know what? The last few weeks, I thought Bruno Fernandes, all of a sudden, example, when they played Leeds, I thought he was pretty much shut down by Calvin Phillips. And he hadn't scored, I think it was 3 games in a row where he didn't score. And I thought Bruno Fernandes has gone cold. Maybe the rest of the season he's worn out, and maybe he's just lost his touch. And then this proved me wrong. He just came back, and then the same old Bruno Fernandes that we saw earlier in the season. I think every player at some point is going to have a cold spell. It's happening for our team, Leeds United, my team, I should say, with Patrick Bamford. Hasn't scored in 5, but Bruno Fernandes, I give him credit, but for me, Cavani, the Cavani we saw it early in the season when he was given more game time, that movement off the ball earlier in the season with some of the headers and the movement. He's looked good. Great, I think, squad management with rotation. Maybe Solskjaer is not given enough credit as a manager. Maybe we're underrating him or not giving. Do you think he's not given enough credit for the type of manager he is?
I'm not too sure about that. I think he's been there, 3 years now? 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, it was 2.5 years, something like that. Yeah.
And so it's a huge transition to take over from Ferguson, and we're still feeling the effects of his departure. So I think he's done a reasonable job to take over from the mess that was Van Gaal, the mess that was Mourinho, just to have some stability for a couple of years. Having the same manager will bring success with United, and to be second now at this time, I'm very content with. I think it's a good position to be in. If we won the Europa League, that'll be a very good season. It's not something you should be saying about Manchester United, but that's the reality of where we're at now. And if we can build on this year, I think we're in a really good position compared to the Liverpool didn't really sustain their title challenge from last year. So it's going to be interesting next year. We'll be one of the favourites in a very healthy position.
Yeah, I think it's going to be maybe a different challenge next year, because obviously a healthy Liverpool is not going to be out of the top six. As we sit now, Liverpool, while we're talking, are out of the top six currently. Maybe they creep back in at sixth place. I don't know. But healthy Van Dijk, a healthy Gomez. However, I see some shake-up at Liverpool, and I'm not sure we see exactly the same squad. Is the chemistry there? Is the confidence there? We'll wait and see. But Man U, I think, do you think they make some additions? If you had to make some changes at Man U, do you think there's changes needed? And if so, what positions? Are you happy with the squad as it is right now?
No, well, it's always a healthy thing to bring in new faces. I don't think it needs a drastic overhaul, but to have maybe one or two new faces in the door, players with really strong pedigree, like, for example, Fred's came on, and he's not the most high-profile player in the world, but those are the type of players that, because United weren't in the Champions League over the past year, we've had to go for. But now that next year that we'll be in the Champions League, we can attract higher profile players. So I think someone with a bit of pedigree, possibly a centre midfielder who has a bit of steel. I think we've been saying this since we haven't replaced Roy Keane, basically. Someone that can be
that's a tough replace right there.
Yeah, strong leader, someone with pedigree, someone with a lot of experience and high quality. But it doesn't need a lot of changes, because going forward we have a lot of options. Rashford, Greenwood, Martial, they've all came to the fore under Solskjaer. So I think we just let them flourish, and then maybe someone in the middle with a bit of experience.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, if you get a strong centre midfielder a la the Roy Keanes of the world, that would be fantastic. Now, Mike, unfortunately, he's so busy with his commitments that we won't see him for some time. But we did want to mention the next game, because we would have had some fun at Mike's expense. Villarreal beating at home 2-1 Arsenal. And 5 minutes in, wow, all of a sudden, boom, Villarreal is up 1-0 already through Muniz. And Albiol made it 2-0 on the 29th minute. And I thought, oh, man, they're done and dusted now. Pepe scores penalty in the 73rd minute. Arsenal get back in it. But they had already got sent off. Ceballos Fernandez for Arsenal got sent off in the 57th minute. Even though they're down to 10 men at that time, 7 minutes after Pepe scores the penalty, Capoue for Villarreal, he gets sent off as well. And they had chances to equalise. They had 53% possession, Arsenal, but to no avail. They're 2-1 going into the second leg. Aubameyang, I think he was a sub. I can't figure out. Aubameyang, I think he came back. He'd been out. I think he had malaria, if I'm not mistaken. Aubameyang. I didn't realise this until I read this week, that he was being out, and that's why he'd been missing recently. Aubameyang had malaria. He came on at the end of the game, I think with 5 minutes to spare. But they started Smith Rowe, Odegaard, and Nicolas Pepe instead. What do you think right now? You think, if you had to predict, do you think the final is going to be, who do you think is going to be? Man U against, would you like to see Arsenal come through and make it an all-English final, or do you think it's Villarreal?
I think Villarreal will do it. Who would I like to see? I don't really care, to be honest. If Arsenal get knocked out at this stage, fine. If we beat them in the final, that would be even better. But
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty on the fence on that one. Be nice to have an all-English final with the Europa League and Champions League. It would show that the league has really putting out a statement around Europe that it's the best league in the world.
And it has shown that the last few years. I mean, gosh, I think Barca's fallen away. I think Bayern will still be in it potentially if it would. I think it would have been Bayern instead of PSG if Lewandowski hadn't been out. Now, Lewandowski is now fit and back in the squad, but unfortunately, he was out injured at the time when they played PSG in that decisive leg. Let's move on to Friday. So congratulations to your team, Man U. 6-2, great victory. Friday comes around. Surprising, 1-1 draw. Southampton 1-1 with Leicester City. Now, Leicester City surprised us. At least it surprised me. They're still in third place, and they've been playing pretty well lately. However, the only thing concerns me about Leicester City is Vardy. Vardy's goals have dried up. He's not the same clinical finisher with the goal scoring that was happening in the first 15 games of the season. Hopefully for them, he'll rediscover in the last few games, his touch. Ward-Prowse surprisingly put Southampton up with a penalty. However, Johnny Evans, ex-Man U player, of course, 68 minute gets the equaliser. Leicester City wasteful, 18 shot advantage, 18 shots on the goal versus only 3 shots on goal for Southampton, 71% possession, and you really drop a point there. You throw away a chance to even be in the conversation for second place. But at this point, second place is going to be Man U. It's pretty much done and dusted. Let's move on to Saturday's games. And Saturday was Crystal Palace at home to Manchester City. No surprise here. 2-0 win. What was great for Man City was to see Sergio Aguero. He's leaving at the end of the season, and he's back in the scorer's column, 57th minute. Ferran Torres, 59th minute. 13 shots on goal versus 8 shots for Crystal Palace. It's sort of weird. Zaha's back for Crystal Palace. They had Andros Townsend and Benteke up front as well. Roy Hodgson, for me, I think Crystal Palace, if I were them, I'd make a change. I think they need to freshen things up. We've said enough really about Man City. We know they're going to win the title. I think it's the postponed game, which we'll get to, between Manchester United and Liverpool. If Man U had lost that game to Liverpool, then the title would have been already celebrated by Man City. So it's just basically the title's on ice for Man City. I looked at what we talked about last time. The last thing to mention is on the bench, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Foden, Diaz, and Walker. And still enough to easily win, which is sort of crazy, right? Now, this pains me. The next game I don't want to cover this one, but the next game was Brighton deserved, I have to say this as a Leeds fan, deserved 2-0 winners at home to my side. Leeds United, you notice this week, I'm not wearing my customary Leeds United jersey. Wasn't intentional, subconsciously maybe. But Leeds missing out Calvin Phillips, missing out Rafinha, and it showed. I've no way to say this, but Leeds, the worst performance of the season for me away from home. Gosh, horrible performances. Alioski gave away a penalty, brings down Danny Welbeck, easy penalty, drags him down, stupid penalty to give away. Pascal Gross converts it in the 14th minute. Danny Welbeck in the second half makes it final, scores the second, makes it 3 points for Brighton. Brighton, to give them credit, should have been 4 or 5-0 winners. Trossard missed a sitter with an open goal from 6 yards out. I don't know how. Alioski gave the ball away constantly. Klitsch, lethargic, giving the ball away. Roberts giving the ball away. Harrison, pathetic crosses coming in. Bamford, no service, was pulled off in the second half. Forgettable performance. After 3 games in a row, unbeaten, beating Manchester City, tying your side, Manchester United, tying Liverpool, and this is the crap we come up with. Absolutely horrible. Your take on the game. Did you see any of the highlights? Did you watch any of the game? What was your verdict?
Yeah, I watched the highlights, and it was a clumsy penalty to give away from Alioski. I don't think he knew or appreciated he was inside the box. He's falling, he leans towards the ball, he sees the player, and he still gets his legs tangled with the Brighton player. And Gross converts the penalty very well. Welbeck with the second goal, fantastic turn, really, really lovely goal. He does the Cruyff turn, and then slots it home with his left foot. So good result for Brighton, but Leeds not building on the good results that they've had from the previous games. So it's disappointing, but I think that's where Leeds really falter at the minute, that inconsistency.
Yeah, you know what? And this was surprising to me until I saw the starting lineup before the game. And as soon as I saw Calvin Phillips was missing due to a last-minute injury, I thought, who would have been the best players on that run when we were on that run where we were unbeaten in 3 against 3 of the top big sides? Calvin Phillips and Rafinha. And who were we missing in the game? Calvin Phillips and Rafinha. This team did not show up. I think mentally they came in flat. They were missing somebody that was strong in midfield that could really get, stop that press that Brighton tends to have, because they've got some decent attacking. They're pretty free-flowing. We needed some steel in midfield. We didn't have it. We needed better supply. We didn't have it. Harrison was awful. He's been great in games like the 4-3 loss to Liverpool where he scored that beaut. He scored some really great goals. Pathetic performance. It happens to the best of teams. It hasn't happened a lot for Man U this year, but you've seen it in teams like Liverpool, like Tottenham. You've seen it even on the odd occasion that Manchester City has lost. They've had a flat game. Every side usually has a flat game. Hopefully for Leeds, this is it. Chelsea were up next, 2-0 winners at home to Fulham. And I think this pretty much seals the deal, not mathematically, but for Fulham, in my estimation, going down. I think it's going to be Sheffield United's already relegated, West Brom on the verge of being relegated. And I think Fulham needed to pick up points in this one. Now, for me, Chelsea under Tuchel has been great. The great rotation. He doesn't keep the same starting lineup. Every week, it's either Pulisic's in, then next week he's not. It's Werner on the bench for a lot of times, and then he rotates him in. It's all of a sudden, it's now Havertz that was sitting on the bench earlier in the season. Now Kai Havertz is starting, and he's banging them in. I think it's like 8 goals in the last, 9 games or something like that. It's something crazy where he's scored a bunch of goals recently. He gets the brace. Kai Havertz, 10th minute, 49th minute. I love this guy. Kai Havertz, I think you give him another season of growth in that squad. Chelsea, I think, going to be dangerous. I think they'll be top 4 next year. I think they should stick with Tuchel. If they get some signings in the off-season, Chelsea could be a dangerous side. I really like them. They had, unfortunately, for Fulham, a little bit more possession, a little bit more shots, and yet Fulham just no conversion. What's your take on Chelsea? Where do you see them, if they add some additions, do you see them a danger side again next year under a full season with signings of Tuchel, his choice, and his management for a full season? What do you see from them?
Yeah, I think Chelsea will be a huge threat to anyone next year. They'll be in with a big chance of contending for the league, if not winning the league. A pre-season, a full season under Tuchel's belt will do them the world of good. It's really exciting times for Chelsea with Havertz. I think he's has a lovely left foot on him. He's athletically really impressive. So his development will be something that we'll look forward to for next season. And yeah, I think it's a good time for Chelsea fans. We've seen snippets of Tuchel's prowess as a coach. So I think it's a good time to be a Chelsea fan, but they'll be happy for the season to end and look forward to next season happening.
Yeah, you're right. And when they've got options, as I said, Pulisic, they've got a lot of youngsters as well. I mean, they've got Hudson-Odoi. They've got Havertz, as you know, you just mentioned him. They've also got Mason Mount, another youngster who I'm a big fan of. And again, the rotation, this game, it was Werner, Havertz and Ziyech. But as I said, other games we've seen Ziyech on the bench, Havertz on the bench, Werner on the bench. So deeper squads like Man City, like Chelsea, wow, it comes down. They can splash out the dough. They can get the depth of squad. Let's move on. Deserving 3 points for Chelsea. Everton, close game. 2-1 losers at home to the Villains. Ollie Watkins, one of my favourites, 13th minute, puts them up. Everton equalised through Calvert-Lewin, who earlier in the season we were singing his praises. He was leading the league with 11 goals in the first, 11 goals in the first 10 games or something crazy like that. And then he went into just a free fall and suddenly just woke back up. But Everton's one of those weird teams that just one week they're playing good, the next week not so good. The winner, however, was by Anwar El Ghazi. He's like a sharpshooter. He sees an opportunity and he goes for it, and he's a constant shooter. He wraps it up in the 80th minute. I think the Villains, once they get a healthier squad, they need some signings in the summer. I still don't think they're a top 6 side. However, we're missing my boy in midfield that's been out for a while. We haven't seen him back, Jack Grealish. And I think Grealish, they've missed him for a substantial portion of the season out for probably about a third of the season. The Villains take that one, and we moved on to Sunday, and it was Newcastle, 2-0 losers against Mike's team, Arsenal. We don't like talking about Arsenal, do we? We'll skip this one much, just other than Mo El-Elneny, 6th minute, puts him up. Aubameyang wraps it up in the 66th minute. First league game he was back after being out due to, as I said before, the what he was out with. What did I say he was out with? Malaria, that's it. He was out with malaria, I think, when he was in Africa. And I think he got malaria. I could be wrong. I thought he got it in Africa, but I could be wrong. But it's good to see him back. Welcome back to Orba. Fabian Schär needlessly sent off in the 90th minute for Newcastle. Luckily, they'd had a good run, and I think it's lucky that Newcastle are safe and out of the bottom 3. They lose all 3 points. Arsenal, I believe, they are in 9th position. Now, I watched the next game. It was Spurs, who have been in a rotten run of form, but since they moved on from Mourinho with the new manager, who I still think obviously will be replaced at the end of the season, The second half, I really loved watching the free-flowing football of Spurs and Gareth Bale with a hat-trick in the 36th minute, 61st minute, and his hat-trick in the 69th minute. And then Son, who early season form was amazing. Beautiful provider also, besides scoring his own goal in the 77th minute. He provided, I think it was the second goal from Bale, a beautiful slide ball through, put him through on goal, and Bale converted it. 17 shots on goal, but don't get carried away. We are talking about Sheffield United that's already been relegated. And how much can you take away from this game? Is Spurs with a healthy squad, Kane healthy, Bale up front, Dele Alli back in the squad, Son, or do you still see leaky back four, shaky at the back, not a really good true assessment of Spurs against Sheffield? Where do you see Spurs going into the off-season?
Well, it's obviously good for Bale to get the hat-trick, and the attacking threat that they have is outstanding. It's up there with the best in the Premier League, if not the best in the world.
Yep.
So they do have to shore up things at the back. They do need a bit of stability. Mason has came on now, and I'm sure it's not an easy role to come in as such a young manager. He's 29, so he'll have to earn the respect of a lot of the senior players. But he got off to a good start with Southampton.
Yeah.
And then lost the cup final to Man City by a goal. So I'm sure it's been a challenging time for him, but as Tottenham runs through his blood, so it won't be for a lack of trying from his part. So if he steadies the ship between now until the end of the season, and then they get a high-profile manager who can do a good job, it will help Spurs, but they do flatter to deceive, like I've said before. They always seem to come up short. I think it's going to take a couple of years to get back to the heights of Pochettino, where he brought them to the Champions League final. It's also exciting time to see how if Bale will go back to Madrid, if he'll stay with Tottenham, and to see how if he does stay, how it's going to work with Son and Kane and fitting them all into an attacking squad.
Yeah, I was watching the game and I thought, Bale took his goals really well, but it seemed almost like Harry Kane almost forgot where he was. It's almost like he was crowded out. He had a chance he should have taken care of and converted towards the end of the game, but I had the same reservations. My question is, how do you keep them all happy? Does Harry Kane, if Bale comes back and he doesn't go back to Madrid and he somehow is able to stay at Spurs, which I doubt, but if he is, does Harry Kane move on? Does Harry Kane take a big offer and go to a European side? Does he go to a Madrid? Does he go to one of the other top four sides? I don't know. Question
I think he should. I think he should have went maybe last year. Yeah. He's coming into his 30s now, and so the clock's ticking on him moving to a team such as Madrid or a Barcelona on the continent. So he definitely has that potential. No matter where he goes, he'll score goals because he's a world-class player. But if Tottenham do manage to keep him, then I'm sure he'll get back to goal-scoring ways. Yeah, so Harry Kane probably should have moved on for the progression of his career in order to win trophies. But you have to give him credit for sticking with Tottenham. I'm sure he loves the club through and through. But from an outside point of view, I'd like to see him fulfill his potential in winning Champions Leagues and winning leagues. And he's only going to do that with a different team.
Yeah, and I think, you're right. The clock is ticking. And I think if he wants to win honours, he's the type of player that wants to win Champions League. He wants to win titles. And I think he can do it. And he's still got some goals in him. He showed this season, even being out with some, missing some games due to injury, he still banged in. He's got his customary 20, so he's already there, right? Let's move on. So thanks for that, Darren. We moved on to Monday, and it was West Brom yesterday, at least Monday in the UK, not in Australia. And it was West Brom, a 1-1 draw with Wolves. I was surprised at this one. Wolves have really fallen off a bit for me. Of course, the biggest impact on their squad and their results is not only losing Diogo Jota, but of course that horrible skull fracture earlier in the season with Raul Jimenez. And I don't think you're seeing a true Wolves squad. I think getting a healthy Jimenez back and getting some signings in the off-season, and maybe you'll see different results from Wolves. West Brom, I still think, are going down. They need a miracle to survive. Fabio Silva had put Wolves up in the 2 minutes of added time in the first half, and only for 0-0 for West Brom to tie it up in the 62nd minute. 16 shots on goal for Wolves, and yet only 9 shots on goal for West Brom, and you only walk away with 1 point apiece. Then it was Burnley, not surprising, 2-1 losers at home to another dangerous squad that we underestimated maybe earlier in the season, but you brought up, you were a fan of David Moyes' side in that really industrious, I don't know if the term you used, but it was almost like, I think you said industrious, hard-working squad, typical of David Moyes' side. Mikel Antonio was back in the side, healthy now, back in the goals in the 21st and 29th minute. Chris Wood, however, had put Burnley up, ex-Leeds striker, with the penalty in the 19th minute. However, 16 shots on goal for West Ham versus 6 for Burnley, deserved 3 points. West Ham, wow, we could be talking, it's not sealed up yet, but West Ham could be headed to Europe. There's still a fight for the 4th, 5th, and 6th spot, so we'll see what happens there. And then, sorry, West Ham is in 5th place, I should say. They're fighting for Europa League. However, Chelsea has not wrapped up 4th place. So my bad on that. Now, last game, we want to briefly, before we sum up and cover the tables, great news for British sides in the Champions League. Champions League finalists, first up, Man City, 2-0 winners at home to PSG, 4-1 on aggregate. Riyad Mahrez with a brace in the 11th and 63rd minute. The only thing I don't get, Dazza, because it just finished up when we were about to jump onto this broadcast, so I didn't get to see the entire game. I've only seen the results. The only thing that surprised me, we'll cover this a little bit more in depth next week. For PSG, they did not start, and we were talking about this before the broadcast, Mbappe on the bench. He didn't even come on as a sub. We're only assuming either an injury or an illness. We're not sure, so we'll have to clarify that. Julian Draxler also on the bench. So two of the best superstars for them, Mbappe and Draxler, both did not start. Mbappe didn't even come on. And Neymar started up front, and then Di Maria sent off in the 69th minute. Now, Gundogan, Foden, De Bruyne started for Man City. We're excited to see a British side through. Your take on seeing Man City going forward, do you think they've got a very good chance to win it all? If they're either playing, it doesn't matter if they're playing Real Madrid or Chelsea, do you see right now the favourites being Man City?
I do. When I look at the other teams, Real Madrid and Chelsea and Manchester City without doubt are the strongest out of those 3 teams at the moment. And as a Man United fan, it's not good to see Man City flourishing, but as a neutral, it would be some achievement for them to win the Champions League, the Premier League, and the EFL Cup that they've already won. So it's been a long time coming. I think it's been the one part of Guardiola where he's probably been disappointed, where he hasn't won a Champions League with Manchester City, and it seems to be an obsession of his, and especially for the likes of Aguero, I'd be really happy as a neutral to see him win a Champions League medal.
Yeah,
And
that'd be a great sending off, wouldn't it, for him if he leaves at the end of the season? Yeah.
Absolutely, it would, and for a great advertisement for the Premier League as well. And if they do, it's because they deserve it. They have been an outstanding team. One of the greatest. I'm going to say they're one of the greatest Premier League teams that I've seen. Probably not up there with the Invincibles, but they're pretty close. In how impressive they've been.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the style of play compared to when I grew up in the Man Cities with the Dennis Laws and I shouldn't say the Dennis Laws because that's Manchester United, but the Colin Bells, the squad in the 71 Man City had, and they were a great side, but not the flair. They were almost like a working man's club. It was this flair that they've had under Pep has been amazing, and players like Aguero, and then of course, when David retired, what's his name? David Silva. Was it Silva? Yeah, Silva that retired. Was it about a year ago, right?
Yeah.
David Silva. Yeah, I was saying David, but David Silva he retired. Just absolutely amazing player. The David Silva and Aguero, and of course De Bruyne since he's been in the club. What a freaking player he is, man! They're just brilliant to watch, and some of the youngsters coming through as well, the Fodens of the world. They've got a bright future, and the amount of spend, they're going to shore it up. I thought maybe a season ago when they were losing the title to Liverpool, I thought the back four is leaking too many goals. The start of this season, if we judge their season on the first 5 games of this season, I would have said, there's no way Man City are winning this title. And then Pep Guardiola proved me wrong. They got healthy bodies back in the squad, and they continued that form. So congratulations to Man City and their fans and the team. We hope that it's an all-English final and hope Chelsea beat Real Madrid. But either way, I think Man City have got a good shot. Let's cover the standings as we speak. Man City at the end of 34 played 80 points. Man U in second. Your squad, Dazza, only played 33, but they're 13 points behind, 67 points. The reason why Manchester United have only played 33, where all the other sides have played 34, we'll get to that in a second. Third place is Leicester City in 34 played, 63 points. Chelsea, 61 points in fourth for the automatic Champions League positions. West Ham only 3 points behind in fifth, and Spurs 56 points, played 34. Mike's squad in, I always want to mention, even though he's not with us anymore on the broadcast, they're in 9th position, 49 points, and Leeds in 11th at 47 points, which for a newly promoted side, I'll take it. I wouldn't have expected much more than that. So I'm pretty happy despite this week's lackluster. Now, there was an event we were chatting the other day before we hopped on today's broadcast that the game, what would have been our feature game of the week, Manchester United at home to Liverpool, was called off at the last minute because of some fans that initially had planned a peaceful protest outside the stadium to protest the Man U owners, the Glazers, partly because they're running the club, partly because tied into the whole thing with the breakaway proposed European Super League. And they were unhappy. However, there was a small group within those planned peaceful protesters that started throwing bottles at the police, started throwing bottles at the horses that the police were riding. And also they had some protesters that broke into the stadium, that got past the police and barricades and got into the actual grounds, which led to the game being called off and leading to postponement for a future date. What is your take? Was it disappointment as a Man U fan that a very few select supporters have just tried to sort of ruin the day, ruin what is usually a great rival game, and really taint the reputation, at least on that day? Because if this had been Alex Ferguson still at the helm, he would have run riot on this one. I mean, I hope this leads to bans from the stadium and future games for these people, and they should be identified. What's your take as a fan?
Yeah, it was completely out of order for the fans to do that, to attack the police, to break into the stadium, to go onto the pitch, to set off flares. Of course, they're disappointed and disillusioned with the Glazers and the decision to go into a Super League, which is something that under Ferguson I couldn't see happening. But under Solskjaer, it was a decision that was made, and not by Solskjaer, but obviously the powers that be there.
Yeah.
And especially during this time of COVID, society is angry and disappointed. A lot of people's jobs have been lost, and it's a time for people to vent their fury, and they're going to do that in whatever way they can.
Mm-hmm.
But it's disgraceful behaviour. It's not the image that Manchester United want to give out to the world. And it's something that the people who have broke into the stadium and have done criminal behaviour should be held accountable for their actions. And, lifelong bans should be put in place, because no matter how angry you are at your club or the people who are running your club, you still have to show a lot of respect. And that wasn't shown at Old Trafford. And so hopefully the people who have broken are held accountable, and it can be cleaned up. We're not going into the Super League. It was a dramatic fall, and it hasn't worked out. And so hopefully that behaviour doesn't happen again by the fans.
I agree with you, and I think if Ferguson was still at the club, that definitely wouldn't have happened. It would have. Number one, I don't think they would have gone into the proposal of going into join that proposed Super League. Obviously, it's good to see that the six, because of the pushback from the fans, that the six British squads or sides pulled out of the proposal. However, the Glazers really probably leave a sour taste in the hardcore Manchester United fan. And it was interesting because the Manchester United, the gentleman that they interviewed from the Manchester United Supporters Trust, who was representing them at the game from Sky Sports, he wasn't apologetic. Sky Sports asked him, are you sorry for what happened today? Do you have any apologies or any remorse? And he said, absolutely not. He said, I'm not going to say anything against that because of what the Glazers have done, and I thought that was wrong. I disagreed. I saw the need to maybe protest the Glazers, but I think it can be done in a different manner, and it can be done peacefully, and you don't have to show physical violence. You don't have to set off flares. You don't have to throw bottles at police or police horses. Horses are innocent animals; they don't need to be, attacked. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing. But again, I think overall, the large segment of the fans that went down there from Manchester United, to be fair to the large majority, went down there for peaceful protest. So great points, Dazza. Another great week. Any topics you think that you, before we leave, you want to sort of bring up? Are you fairly happy with the state of the game? Do you want to see some changes brought down from in terms of the what could any changes needed really with the EPL? Any changes needed from the Football League? Do you think that any changes with VAR, because we both have maybe some grievances? I probably more as a Leeds fan. You think that it's in the right place? Do you see any changes needed?
No, I think the Premier League and the Champions League is a fantastic system the way it is at the moment. The Super League failed dramatically, from what I can see, because people who make big decisions don't really understand the game. If you've got a competition where certain teams cannot get relegated and you're paying those certain teams 3.5 billion pounds or dollars, then it just completely looks unfair from the get go. So now that that's in place, or now that that's happened, and the football associations have released a statement saying that any players or teams that do defect to other organisations will automatically be expelled. Then it's a precursor for any future plans that might have been breakaway leagues, which aren't going to happen now. With VAR, I think it's a good thing. I think some of the penalties that have been given as a result of VAR have been very, very harsh. There's still a bit of confusion around the rules. So that is something that will improve over the years. But overall, football, apart from the pandemic effect and it obviously and the fans not being able to access the stadium, the structure of Premier League, Champions League, UEFA Cup, I think is perfect. I think it's a great. It doesn't need change. I think it's brilliant.
So you think changing up the number of games isn't called for? They were discussing that, whether to adjust the number of games played?
In the Premier League?
No, in the Champions League.
To reducing it a bit?
No, I thought it was expanding. I thought it was going to expand. My understanding was I thought they were going to expand the amount of games. Is that not the case?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard that, but if it is the case, it's going to put a huge stress on English players because you've got teams in the continent have that winter break, and that gives them a bit of space to breathe during the season, whereas the English teams don't. So if they're putting more games on in the Champions League, then that's going to put even more stress on English players. So if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you for a great another week. It's great to see you back, pal. And everyone around the world that's watching, you can tune us in on iTunes. You can listen to us on the podcast on iTunes. You could also check us out on YouTube channel. Also, you can go to globalsportschannel.com. Awesome seeing you, pal, and we'll see you next week. And
right,
have a great week, guys. Take care, and thanks again for tuning in to the Football Show Week 34.
Thanks, David.